I'm going to call this meeting of the Eugene Water and Electric Board to order. My name is John Borowski. I'm president this year. We will start our agenda. Where did my agenda go? Agenda check. Anything from the commissioners that they need to change or check? Being none, we'll move on to 2, which is items from board members and general manager. We'll start with Mindy. Tim. John Brown.
2 things. I attended Lane Electric's annual meeting, and I'm a customer, but also was invited. I'm the rep to do there, and I'd just like to note that Scott Coe, the general manager, is here. Welcome, Scott. And also, just to get it into the record, I've had several neighbors, my North Ward 5, ask why all the water lines in the main roads, like in Crescent Avenue, and the side roads and everything, every water man cover has been painted blue with arrows and things. They're just doing the water, and they're wondering why they're doing that. I couldn't tell them, so if you could get back to me and tell me so I could tell them. Thank you.
We'll get back to you.
Okay, Sonia. And myself had a meeting with one of our consultants earlier this month that's working on one of our policies. So they met with Vice President Schlossberg and myself just to kind of get a feel of how we're working on getting one of our policies implemented. It went well, I guess. We'll see if they think so, but from my end, it went well. General Manager.
Good evening, Commissioners. Just most of the items were contained in my report. The one thing I did want to highlight was the upcoming September 11th Safety Expo that you should allow some time to attend if possible. There's a pretty full agenda, and there's links on my report to further information about that. But that was something I wanted to note. So other than that, I'm good.
All right, thank you. The next item is public input. So I will read this. Welcome to the public input session for this meeting. EWEB is a public non-for-profit organization whose charter is to deliver drinking water and electricity to our community. Although this forum is not used for an open back and forth dialogue, commissioners and staff value hearing from diverse perspectives and receiving community input. Speakers are asked to keep their testimony relevant to EWEB business and request that everyone share their comments in a productive and respectful manner. Should speakers or audience members become disruptive, they may be muted and or removed from the meeting. When your name is called, you've got 3 minutes to provide your comment. Public hearing is now open. I will call names one at a time, and as of right now, I've got 2 names that have signed up. First is Carl Morgenstein, and then Tom Hutton.
Good evening, Commissioners, President Borowski. Pleasure to be here. It's good to be here in person. Sorry I wasn't able to be here last month when I sent you all our request for the Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District. I am the board chair for the Upper Willamette and wanted to bring forth the opportunity that I wrote to you last month and support and hope to get support from EWEB for managing that this important property. So this opportunity came to SWCD because for 22 years when I worked at EWEB, I tried to work with this landowner to increase conservation on this property that is immediately upstream of EWEB's intake. And it's a hazelnut orchard, which tends to use a lot more chemicals per acre than other agricultural practices in the McKenzie. After I retired, the landowner approached me and said, well, you know, now I'm ready. Can you help facilitate something? So long story short is I've been working with this landowner for over a year to come to the opportunity that's before the Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District. We do have the funding and we're putting $4 million investment in the McKenzie to acquire this property. We are not there yet. The board still has to approve the purchase sale agreement. But given that, we are lacking the funding and requesting EWEB help us with funding for stewardship of the property after we own it, for restoration work and other work that directly benefits water quality. And I think, the main needs are funds. Because with the funding, we can put that into a long-term investment pool or a local government investment pool where we can make interest on the money that we can use for conservation and stewardship over time. And it also provides the district flexibility so we can leverage other opportunities from outside funding if we have funds available to us to do that. The district will be adding funds and FTE to our annual budget to manage the property, but what we lack is the investments for stewardship and water quality improvement work. I know that this is before the board tonight, an agenda item, and the board memo indicates that the staff recommendation is for in-kind investment to support the Stormwater Conservation District in this important work. The in-kind investment, the way Lisa is written in the memo, in some ways, when it mentions collaborative meetings and planning and those types of things, it makes it sound like basically as we meet with EWEB on things that we already do, you'll just be deducting that from the ledger. And as you all know, when you own real property, you need real funding to manage a property. And so the in-kind proposal falls a little short of what we were hoping EWEB would be able to provide us. I think, is that a warning? Oh, I got 3. Oh, is that right?
Yep.
So anyway, long story short, the funding that we were requesting could maybe be brought to us through extending the watershed restoration fee for 4 months rather than in-kind funding. In-kind funding could work if we have direct control over the resources EWEB wants to provide us. But knowing that, I know that EWEB has priorities and those resources we would be competing with. So I just beg you and hope that you'll support funding this important endeavor with the Upper Willamette Water Conservation District as your partner. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tim Hutton.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tom Hutton.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tom.
No, that's all right. I represent the bargaining unit of IBEW Local 659. Tonight, many of our members are here in person, and you'll notice that we're all wearing union buttons. These buttons represent our collective concern over the ongoing erosion of workplace rights, unchecked management behavior, and the failure of EWEB's internal systems to protect its employees. This is not a new problem. There has been a longstanding mistrust of management across multiple divisions. The recent incidents have amplified that mistrust and made it clear that internal accountability has broken down. Just weeks ago, several of our members were brought into an investigation meeting. Stewards asked directly for the topic in advance and were denied that information. The meeting subject was only disclosed once employees were seated in the room. That violates both the spirit of the intent of Oregon's Public Employees Collective Bargaining Act. Representation rights are meaningless if employees aren't given the opportunity to use them. Many of our members have followed the appropriate internal channels to raise concerns, whether through HR, direct supervisors, or established reporting systems, but time again, those concerns are either ignored, dismissed, or worse, weaponized by management and used to justify retaliation. Instead of resolving the issue, the process itself becomes a tool of intimidation. This has created a pattern, not of hurt feelings, but of procedural failure and institutional breakdown. We are also gravely concerned that these patterns expose EWEB to legal liability, including potential claims of retaliation, discrimination, hostile work environment, and contract violations. As elected officials, this board carries a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that EWEB remains not only financially sound, but also ethically and legally compliant. Based on what we've seen, that standard is not currently being met. For that reason, I am formally requesting that this board authorize an independent third-party audit of HR's handling of complaints and investigations, compliance with PECPA and CBA, disciplinary trends, retaliation claims, and supervisory conduct. We are not here to fight, we are here to work, but we will not allow a culture of silence, intimidation, or procedural gamemanship to define our workplace. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel McInnes.
Good evening. My name is Rachel McInnes. I am a citizen of Eugene and a paying customer of EWEB. I've been here several times to express my opposition to the smart meter. Again, the smart meter was installed on my home without permission. I do have the EMF signal turned off. However, I have continued to experience adverse health effects, including difficulty sleeping and difficulty focusing and breathing issues. I am here to again implore you for your empathy for those of us in Eugene. I know I'm not alone who do suffer health effects from the dirty electricity that the smart meter emits, even if the signal is turned off. I have 4 children at home, so I am concerned about that as well. I'm here to ask for choice. I realize that we can't go back in time. You're not going to take the smart meter away, but I'm asking for choice for a very small percentage of the Eugene population that does experience these symptoms, that you would just give us choice. I know that I will continue to request that the signal is turned off so that it will need to be manually read each month. I know that you are probably going to impose a fee at some point for that, even though all these years we've had EWEB employees come out and read the meters and have never been charged for that. I'm guessing that you've reduced a lot of personnel that does that because you now have the smart meter. But I'm asking that you would reconsider imposing that fee. Again, my neighbor is on disability. We share a house, basically. There's 2 smart meters on our house. And so that's double the dirty electricity, double the EMF radiation. So I'm asking for choice, that you would give those, again, a very small population that are experiencing these adverse health effects, that you would give us choice of an analog meter. We have to have someone come out and read it anyway. I'm trying to take responsibility for my own health. I'm just asking for some support in that from the city of Eugene, that you would come alongside of those. This will just continue to get worse with time. These reports of sensitivities and adverse health effects with radiation are increasing more and more each year. It will just continue to get worse. So at some point, I do believe you will have to address these issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes the number of speakers that have signed up. I will open the floor to commissioners for questions or comments. Yeah, go ahead, John.
If everybody's leaving, I'd just like to thank you for your presence, and we'll deal with this in the proper protocol. And I've been here for 18 years. I respect each and every one of you. But we have to do what we're allowed to do. So hear you. Thank you. Carl, your request for money. Your request, as you know, I'd sell Carmen Smith to help you down on the lower water. I will, but you know, we got a lot of budget pressures, and as you know, you've sat on the other side of this conversation before. Like tonight, the city's asking us to take over their fire hydrants, and that's $1 million. And you know, so we're gonna have to balance a lot of these choices and everything. And I've always been an advocate for clean water, and especially the closer we get to the intake, the more important to me it is. And so we're going to have that discussion this evening, and I know what the staff recommendation is, and we'll see what we can do. And Rachel's gone, so I won't say anything. Thank you.
Okay. Other commissioners? Well, I would just say for the record, kind of piggyback on what John's said. You know, we're a policy setting board, not an action board. And so I would leave it to the general manager to do what's right. And if he finds that he needs more resources or input from us, I would hope that he would come to us. So that I will let Frank speak.
Yeah, commissioners, appreciate it. Appreciate the comments. Have a great deal of respect for the work that the employees of this organization do. When you have a union, you have a managed relationship, and there are tools of which you use to manage that relationship. Some of those are the collective bargaining agreement itself. Some of those have to do with organizational processes, policies that we have, board policies, and the laws that apply to our relationships. And we have to work with all of those. We also, when we at the management level hear things that warrant investigations, we do just that. We investigate, we look into it, and we try to understand all of the various perspectives that are appropriate to make decisions. And so we will continue to do that and try to understand their specific concerns and work with the union. We have a lot of respect for the union, and hopefully they have a respect for us, even though we will probably likely not agree on everything. And so I would just add that context to it and appreciate the fact that they showed up and provided some comments, and we'll make sure that we're approaching issues fairly and appropriately.
A reminder on protocol. So if I'm contacted by a union member or one of those people or an employee, and they say they want me to listen, what's my role in that request?
So there's really nothing that that commissioners can do as far as, I mean, you can listen. There's a whole series of board linkage policies that grant the authority, and in fact, they restrict the role of commissioners to make employment-related decisions or anything other than really delegate issues like this to the general manager. And so while you can listen, and sometimes it's very appropriate to listen and provide feedback, there is no direct action that a commissioner can take relative to employment matters.
So I just want to follow up on that. So, for instance, the call was to have an independent investigation. Could we direct you to find an outside? I mean, again, I'm just trying to figure out our roles and responsibilities and
So in some ways, I work for the board collectively, and there's a series of BL policies, board linkage policies that govern different aspects of the relationship between the board collectively at large, the individual commissioners, and the general manager. One thing that you could provide direction if the board, as a collective body decided that there was something that they wanted looked into, that could be a directive. But I would also point out, relative to employment matters, there are state agencies who are independent lines of appeal, BOLI, for example, that can look into employee complaints related to behavior and treatment by an employer. So those mechanisms already exist and wouldn't necessarily be appropriate in something like this. But I do work for the board collectively. I would also have to evaluate the opportunity costs as well as the direct cost of any request that the board directs me to consider.
thank you. Just wanted a little clarification. Anybody else at this point? Okay, we will move on to our next item, which is, let's see. There was a note here to reopen public testimony at 5:50. Do I need to do that?
No, I don't believe we have any additional public testimony. So.
Okay, then I'm going to move on to our next item, which is approval of consent calendar A.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, next is consent calendar B, item number 5.
Calendar B.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. No items were removed from the consent calendar, so that leaves us to item number 7, the Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District investment opportunities. Right? I'm in the one that I got in front of me.
Yeah, okay, go on.
What was that? Oh, correspondence. Correspondence wasn't listed on mine. Yes.
President Borowski, because of the protocol relative to the request and the potential action on this, we moved it to an agenda item, and that was actually in response to Commissioner Brown's question regarding that. He was correct. This looked like it was going to be a recommended motion and the course of action, so we moved it to an agenda item.
Okay. So there wasn't any other correspondence that we needed to.
There's no other additional correspondence.
Thank you. Okay. I will let staff take over.
So we're here this evening to answer questions as it relates to the memo that what had originally been correspondence. And Karen can speak to the work that and I can speak to the financial impact.
Okay, John, go ahead.
You knew you're gonna hear from me. I've always been the water advocate and a water advocate, we all are, but the closer we get to the intake, to me, the more important it is. And I see the millions and millions of dollars that we spend up the river. And we've never really spent a lot of money down, Porch Creek and all these other things down there. And finally, we have an opportunity to do that. And after reading the Mackenzie River, the state of the river report last time, and I saw where all the problems are, the spills, the stormwater and everything else. I can't think of a more important expenditure. I hate raising rates, and whether or not we extend the fire recovery fee or we raise rates, rates are full forever. This is just a one time, but to do that, enough money to serve debt on $1 million, I don't think is that much. But to me, I can't think of a more important thing to do. And the stewardship of having somebody with Carl's background and history on hazelnut farming and the proximity of this property, I would really, really, really like to support their request and not in kind. And I know that that's not the recommendation, but that doesn't mean that we have, to me, we don't have to go by every recommendation. We can always deviate from that. And to me, I would very much like to see this supported financially. So I cut to the chase.
So I can respond to that. This is a property that's of high interest to us, and we do support watershed stewardship in that location. Our recommendation is, given the nature of the other projects that we've had to put off because of rate impacts that are a high priority for us, we feel that instead we can shift our budget that we already have without raising rates to accomplish the same thing. So in the recommendation, we have working with the Conservation District to come up with an IGA. That could mean a number of things. In kind meaning, not just giving the funding, because it would be our labor who would be overseeing the direction of some of that work. So we do believe we can come to an agreement that would meet the same intent.
Is there a way we can even partially do this? I mean, and say, okay, we give 500,000 instead of $1 million, because This is just like when we voted to acquire the Finwalk Reach. We had people on this board that said they didn't want to spend that money, didn't think it was important. One of the most important acquisitions we've ever made, in my opinion. This is even closer, and this isn't about the acquisition, this is about the stewardship of it. And seeing how financial challenges are all over the board. And, you know, ask me if I would rather take over the city of Eugene's fire hydrants or do this. I'll do this 10 times before I'll do the fire hydrants. And so that's where my priorities lie. So I understand your position and I'm just one, but that's my perspective.
Frank?
Yeah, Commissioner Brown, I don't think that there's any conflict from staff relative to the importance of the location, the fact that it's to testimony tonight, it's basically an orchard, and we totally agree with the location and the importance. I think when we look at the context of the fact that the organization that we're dealing with here is talking about using that money to garner interest, that's of concern to me. We also know that that program is still evolving and developing, and to commit to in some ways, a blank check for a number of years seems like it's beyond what I personally would classify as good stewardship of the financial resource. It doesn't mean that we don't want to support that work. It doesn't mean that we would not consider it part of our Healthy Farms Clean Water program and work with Carl and his organization to provide good stewardship. It just seems like a stretch to us to commit to a number of years of just funding without being an active participant in what that funding is used for. And that was the basis of our recommendation.
Other commissioners? Sonia? Mindy?
Seems like this is a really strategic opportunity for us. I know that maybe the details haven't been fleshed out yet, but something that I generally really admire and appreciate about EWEB is that we do think strategically, and when an opportunity comes our way, that we figure out a way to take advantage of it. And so I can't remember exactly what the timeline is for getting those funds, but like John said, even if it's not the full amount, I do support funding this in some way and maybe fleshing out the details a little bit more so that there's some more specifics that it does feel like it's strategic on our part and not just giving a blank check.
I really appreciate the thought behind it and have an immense amount of respect for Carl. I served on the board when Carl was part of the EWEB team here. And so I have a lot of trust there. But I do have a pause if it is funding sitting in interest. That was one thing that stuck out to me during the testimony too. I agree with Commissioner Schlossberg that, I think maybe there just needs to be a little bit more conversation there around kind of how this works. I do want to support the project, and I appreciate all of the work that's already gone into seeing how we could manage it on our end by moving this project here and there. I mean, that this already shows a lot of thought going into how we could make this happen. Do we have to make a decision on this evening, or is this something that we can kind of have another conversation about? What's the timing of this?
Commissioner Carlson, I believe the request from the requester was by October 1st. We could spend some time working out more details. It doesn't have to be an absolute go or no go this evening. We could commence again in September, and potentially, I think the target close date was the 1st of October.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm in support of supporting our watersheds and supporting our partners upriver. I think that there's I did not serve with Carl when he was here, but I've heard everyone else has, and the message of trust Carl seems to come through very, very clearly. I am realizing that I think that the challenge that we have now is just more of a timing issue than an intent or a fiscal reality issue. I think that it sounds like my commissioners agree, and I agree with our fellow commissioners that supporting this is of the interest of EWEB and is of the interest of our community as well. And so if there is if it does not harm anything to delay, then I see no reason as to wait for maybe more details to come out to have a clearer idea or understanding. But I just wanted to flag my support and acknowledge this as well. Thanks.
Frank?
Yeah, I think this is valuable feedback. I think there were really two things that I got out of the request. One is a certain degree of commitment as part of closing the purchase, which is where that October 1st date comes. And the other one was some surety around commitment to support the ongoing stewardship of the property over a number of years. So it wasn't just, and that was the reason that a resolution was requested. A resolution goes past a particular budget cycle. And so the organization was requesting for some degree of surety around that. And so those are things that we would have to consider between now and October 1st, would be that this is not just a single year commitment. This is a programmatic commitment, and that could be some combination of financial and in-kind support. So we would have, in essence, August and up to October to work out what those details would look like before presenting a resolution to the board.
Thank you. So I have concerns about this, not about the project, not about what the good that it would do for our watershed and our partners. The concerns I have is that the letter we got was, we need help. We're going to buy the soil district's going to buy the land. We need help managing it and maintaining and doing the stewardship on it. And it was 5 years for $200,000 a year, I think was what it came out to be, $1 million. The water district is a taxing district, and so they have ability to fund things. I can see us moving as a gap type of a funder, saying, okay, you guys are going to buy it, and that first year, that's a big cash drain on your budget, and you may need some help in getting over and putting in a management plan that you can do it. But for EWEB to be managing somebody else's land when they have a taxing district that they can use to do that gives me a little bit of pause. Again, I am in favor of the project, and I would like to see it move forward. I didn't see what the management plan was. Are we going to cut down all the trees? Are we going to keep it running as a filbert farm? None of those details have been flushed out, and the cost and the revenue sharing that's going to go back and forth. For me to make a vote on something like this, especially if we're committing to a 5-year, $200,000 a year resolution, I would definitely need more information. I would heartily be in favor of doing a 1, possibly 2-year type of a bridge management plan thing, and then figure out some sort of a partnership going forward where some of our people could do some of the work as in kind or whatever. But as of right now, just to say, here's $1 million, we're committing to $1 million over the next 5 years to a management plan that I haven't seen. I have a little bit of pause on that. Not that I have a problem with the property or with the good work that it would do for our water system as a whole. So that's some of the concerns that I have. John?
Thank you. And I agree with what everybody said, that we ask staff to go back and try and work this out with the soil and water conservation, get a more refined plan and find out exactly what we're buying. But I just like to remind the board that we've done this before. When we sold the headquarters property, we're maintaining that park for the next 10 years for $50,000 a year. And we didn't have a plan or anything. The city just said, I need $500,000. So we agreed $50,000 a year for the next 10 years to maintain and mow that lawn down on the river at 500 East 4th. So this isn't the precedent establishing thing. I mean, we did that. It's not the same request here. And I get the concerns, but I just know that we've done things like this before with less direction. And so I think we get more direction and more finality of what exactly the ask is. I'm all for delaying this and seeing if we can't, I'm sure that there's a way that this could be worked out. This deal could be made.
Sonia.
I just like to.
Well, if it sounds like we are going to pause for a little bit and let them kind of discuss further, I'm also curious, this piece of property, it's right on the river. A lot of times there are restrictions on what can go in place when a project like that leaves. And I don't know if there's any, I would just like to know what the options are. I mean, if something that's very industrial could be put back on that land, I'd like to know that. I know from what I've experienced in watching the riverfront development in Springfield and what they're doing there are businesses that are right up against the water that are no longer allowed to be there anymore. And so I'd just be curious to know if there are restrictions outside of anything that happens here on what that property could have. Thanks.
Other comments? So I think what I heard, and Frank, you can, and staff can get back to me, was that there's more questions that this board would need to have answered before they could come to a resolution. I think that's kind of what I heard around the room. So do you need clarification of what those questions are? How do you see this moving forward? I mean, I've got a few questions. John's got a few questions. I would rather not flush those all out here at the board since we're 4 minutes in. How would you like us to proceed with this?
President Borowski, I don't need any summary of questions at this point. I think that part of what we're hearing are some of the questions we've had, which is, what's the plan? What role can we play in that plan to support the Upper Willamette district? And how does that blend with the other things going on? So, those are things that we have to fill in the blanks on and talk with Carl in more detail and get more detail quite honestly, from Carl as to what the plan is. And so it seems a bit premature to act on a motion at this point, but rather to dive into some of those details and come back when we have more details that we can present. And whether that fits within the context of our normal budget or whether that's something outside of the normal budget and what the trade-offs are, those are conversations that we'll have as well.
Great. Well, one thing that I would just like to say is that I'm super excited about being able to be partnering with the water district. There's a lot of work that is going to be we're going to have to work together in the coming years and decades. If Second Source ends up on the Willamette, I know we're going to have a lot of different projects that we can use both of our resources to help improve the watershed as a whole. So I hope my comments that I made earlier aren't taken as not wanting to be a good partner with the district, because I think it's a strong thing. We've had a good partnership before they got their taxing district, and I think it can be even stronger now that they are better funded. So I will leave it with that.
And I think we feel the same way at the staff level. We totally understand the value of managing property that close to our intake. We want to make sure that we're adding and bringing the most value as an organization in the way that's most responsible to those who are paying our bills. And that's going to take a little bit more of a deeper dive.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Next up is ownership of fire hydrant.
I suppose I'll hear you. So President Borofsky, Commissioners, good evening. I did want to clarify one comment, Commissioner Brown, that you mentioned earlier regarding the potential transfer of ownership of fire hydrants. This is not something that the city, I feel like at this point in time, is pushing on EWEB. This is more of a collaborative discussion to see if there are opportunities associated with that potential transfer. What we're seeking this evening from commissioners is guidance around the development of a potential resolution to launch into negotiations on this topic with the city of Eugene. The reason we're taking this approach is that when you develop a resolution, it provides the opportunity for commissioners to put boundaries around what a negotiation might look like. And so discussions and advice that we get from you this evening will identify some of the key questions and some of the areas of concern that we think might need to be incorporated into the presentation of a resolution to this board regarding the potential transfer of ownership. Just some quick background. I won't read this. This was all in the backgrounder. We're talking about just under 4,000 fire hydrants. It is pretty common that municipal water organizations do own the fire hydrants and manage those hydrants as part of their assets. I will point out, though, that many water utilities are also part of the city structure in a little different way than EWEB is under a separate board. And so we did commission a number of years ago, and these conversations go back over probably a number of decades if you were to really dig into the archives long enough. This discussion has come and gone through the years. There are some benefits to EWEB. I would characterize those as sort of efficiencies, protection of the water system. There's a number of different things. It is connected to the drinking water system, these particular appliances. We also receive a number of complaints every year about cloudy water, things related to the testing of fire hydrants, for example. It's not the full list of customer complaints, but it is a portion. There's also some community value in the improved maintenance, public safety, water quality, targeted service levels for how the emergency water, in this case, for firefighting, fire suppression, would be available, be used, and how those assets would be managed. We also, as part of the background material, identified a number of potential risks. Some of those compliance related, some of these have to do with how we would negotiate potential transfer with the city of Eugene, how that is structured, what kind of discretional immunity, for example, might apply, what kind of indemnity we would ask for from the city relative to their implementation of standards and codes throughout our service territory. All those things matter and are things that we would include as part of our negotiation. We are looking at the sort of the outer boundaries of this If the city was not to contribute to financially to a transfer, there's some other things we could potentially negotiate with the city relative to non-direct cash transfers, but value that we could potentially extract as part of our relationship with the city and how we operate. But on the outside, $850,000 a year on the water side represents about a 2% revenue requirement or rate increase, if you wanted to call it an average rate increase. And that's based on the what we felt was a targeted, a good level of replacement rate of roughly 60 per year, 60 hydrants per year to maintain the appropriate age and reduce the age of the assets that were the oldest. And so the opportunity tonight is to get this on the table with commissioners, understand what your questions are, what your guidance would be relative to us starting to develop a resolution so that we could incorporate various details, questions, concerns, either investigate those separately from a resolution or incorporate some of those as boundaries that would apply to the negotiation and execution of a potential transfer agreement with the city. And so with that, we'll send it back to you, President Borofsky, and we'll get ready to get barraged with questions.
Okay, I saw Sonia in the queue.
Okay, well, I'll thank you for the opportunity. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I trust EWEB to manage things that have a high level of safety and need for our community, and protecting our community when we have more heightened need around fires is at the top of my mind. So I would love to see this happen, but I would also want to see some assurances around sharing liability. There are concerns that, we have a lot of deferred maintenance, and if there is some liability risk there, can there be some shared liability if we have not gotten through our, replacement schedule for those older ones that have not been taken care of all of this time? I mean, that to me says right there that is a major problem in our community that we need to deal with. And I trust EWEB to manage the infrastructure well, because we do that every day. It's part of our wheelhouse. We have engineers with Six Sigma training that know how to do this stuff. I trust us to do this. So I'd like to see this go forward. I would also like to see, if we're getting a 2%, rate change, that gets us a 2% change in silt. I mean, we need other funding to make this happen. Even if we negotiate some sort of delay in reduction of the silt over time, I'd like to see us get some funding back for that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Yeah.
We heard silt and everyone gasped. No, I want to say thank you, staff, for bringing this forward. And I agree with Commissioner Carlson that moving forward with this is something that's top of mind of myself. Recently in my community, we had a small fire at one of the apartment complexes. And so this is definitely top of mind. This was last week. So watching the fire department unspool the fire hydrants was very like, oh, hey, that's happening. I had a question. I recognize that EWEB is a trailblazer in many ways because we are the largest public utility in Oregon. Are there other public utilities that manage the fire hydrants over other cities? Is there an example that we can follow elsewhere? Is my question.
Sub-desert.
I'm not sure about but as far as public utility, like public water utilities,
Right.
Almost 99% of them manage all of their hydrants.
Gotcha. So we're an outlier in this arena. Got it.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Sonia. I think that EWEB does an excellent job with acknowledging safety and concerns and being very clear about the path forward. And also that I was a little shocked to see the city of Eugene's replacement rates. And I think that that's a acknowledgement in its own that this is a good conversation to have and a good project to move forward with. So I want to flag my support on this and just say thank you for this. I have no recommendations of guidelines or guide bars for staff to be cautious around negotiations. I think that this is an open-ended question that I would support for you. Thanks.
Indy.
I also think that that we should manage the fire hydrants. It makes total sense. And also I do support authorizing you to do some negotiations because I feel like kind of all the risks that you've laid out are valid. And the financial piece, I think, is pretty tricky. It's like it's like you're given like a clunky ambulance and then you're in charge of saving people. But if the ambulance doesn't work, you kind of get in trouble. So I know that the city is facing its own budgetary challenges, but I do feel that there needs to be some agreement or something because to put all that burden on us while we're already raising rates, things just keep piling up. It feels like we have a lot of pressures, and while I think that this is really key and important for us to do, I would love to figure out a way that we're not solely responsible financially for it. And then the other piece is the regulatory piece. I would hate to see those regulations change. You know, city's not in charge of the fire hydrants anymore, and then they change the regulations. That would put undue burden on us.
Commissioner Brown. Okay. Yeah, I'm in favor of it. As far as bringing it to EWEB, it makes sense. It's the water, you know, for everything that was alluded to in the background and what was said tonight. As far as the financial side goes, I'm not so worried about trying to claw back money from the city of Eugene. If the city of Eugene had money to replace fire hydrants, they'd be replacing more than 27 a year. Okay, that's one of the reasons why they're only doing 27 a year, because they're financially constrained. Our community, if we went out to the community, if I went to any of my customers and said, it's going to be another, what is 2% of on water? Do we know what 2% is dollar wise on an average bill? Give me a guess. Yeah.
So my average bill is just over $30.
So 2% is going to be less than $1. It's going to be pennies, right? If I went to any of my customers and said, if I'm going to charge you another 10 cents a month to make sure that we have working fire hydrants, I don't think there's going to be any pushback. And to go to the city and say, to make this work, you've got to give us money that they don't have. I wouldn't go. That would be not a deal breaker for me. Some of the other things that are important, things that Mindy brought up, I agree with. But to have a working, safe fire system at a 2% rate increase and being able to have the correct people doing the work on those. I talked to a firefighter yesterday about this, and he says there's one guy out there with a truck replacing these things, you know. So we have the ability to do this more efficiently, better, and protect our water system. And if that costs us, my customers, $1 a month, to me, it's worth it. And so to hinge this on, we want to get money back from silt or something like that, I'm not leaning into that. I'm leaning into what's best for my community and my customers. And to me, that's bringing them in-house, paying what it needs to be paid, and moving forward. Now you can have it.
I get a little different perspective. I'm all in favor of bringing this in-house, but I'm not in favor of us taking on the total financial responsibility. I believe they have the money, they just don't have the priority. I too talked to firefighters, city councilor and other people, and this is not a line item budget in the fire department. They just do it. And the fact, I think there would be public outrage if the public knew that they were not maintaining it. There's so many low flow, 100-year-old fire hydrants that it's scary, especially in the South Hills, to know that if we have a wildfire, there's going to be a lot of, I mean, didn't College Hill almost run out of water when Civic Stadium burned? I mean, they came close to running out of water just for that one fire. Think if we had a wildfire. So, I mean, this isn't just that. So I would like to claw back some of the money, not all of it. I would like to make it a joint venture because I'm not going to lose it over that. But I don't think that we should be 100%, but $1 million a year, that's going to go up. And this is not going to be a variable thing. Once we take this on, it's forever. We can never cut it from the budget. Because so right now we're delaying projects and everything. We're not going to delay fire hydrant replacement. That's a PR issue. And like I say, if this was public, if more people knew about it, I think it would be in the front page of the paper. And so I'm all for moving forward and seeing if you can't carve out a way. I appreciate what Sonia said about silt. I mean, the fact that they get 6% and the ordinance says 3%, I'm still barking about that. And so if there's a way we can claw back some of this $1 million a year and say we do a 1% rate increase, because, rates are exponential and they're going to go up every year with second source. And so when we raise rates for that and we add up 1% to that, it's going to be a ton of money. So I'd like, and the cost isn't going to stay at $850 a year. So I'm all for it, figure it out financially, but I don't want to just turn around and take on 100% of the financial cost.
Other comments? Frank?
Well, commissioners, I appreciate the perspective. I don't think that conceptually we'd had concerns about the fact that almost all water utilities have this accountability, and we appreciate the confidence in us to manage assets. I think that is what we do. We manage distributed assets. Probably the detail around liabilities, regulations, compliance, those are the things that we would be most concerned with. In other words, holding someone else to a standard you're not maintaining yourself. There's different codes, and we would want to work into any kind of agreement that those would be clear. I think we're maybe less concerned with a one-time 2%, as opposed to which then, yes, over time, those are going to be impacted by just typical inflation over time. But there may be other ways that we could extract some working relationship value from the city of Eugene relative to how projects are managed, other properties and things like that. So, but it sounds like what I'm hearing is that conceptually there's confidence in the organization to manage these assets and manage them effectively, but the details matter, and that those details are ones that we'll want to spell out some of the areas in the resolution, and then others we could potentially even talk about through negotiations, potentially an executive session if we needed to. But that's what I'm hearing, and if something is different, let me know. And we can also check in our one-on-ones if there's additional concerns or questions. But Karen or Deborah, did you have anything else that?
Sonia?
One question that came to mind. So this would only be inside the city of Eugene. How do other areas that are surrounding that we serve water for manage that? Do they have contracts with the city to maintain that too, or do they maintain it on their own? How does that impact the rates of people who don't have it managed within? I don't know, it's not directly tied necessarily to, it is to the water, but it also kind of isn't. So how do we distribute that fee among our ratepayers? So those are my two questions.
All right, let me make sure I understand the question. So are you talking about say City of Veneta how they charge for their hydrants. It's all in their, it would be in their water rates.
It's in their water rates. Okay, so the city manages it in the city of Bonita. We also supply, we supply water to River Road, Santa Clara area. Do they have, I mean, in their own water district, do they pay for the rates up there for the hydrants, or do they contract with the city to take care of it? I don't know.
And we have two different contracts with them. I'm looking at Chris Irvin, our water engineering supervisor. He may be able to answer that question. I don't know off the top of my head what those agreements say for hydrant maintenance.
I can just yell, but one of the districts pays the city to do it, and I believe the other one pays us to do the maintenance, but they each own their own hydrants, so.
So in this process, we'll have to negotiate with them if they're transferring maintenance. Then we would have to work with them. If the city is no longer offering maintenance services, then we would have to think about that too.
And I believe we were only talking about the hydrants that the city owns at this time. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, this only deals with the city-owned hydrants, so it wouldn't affect the districts.
Well, but if the districts are paying the city to maintain it and they're not going to maintain it anymore with that, how would that
Yeah,
work?
I think it would create a separate issue relative to an agreement between EWEB and a water district to perform the maintenance within the water district. If they're contracting with the city now, the city decides to get out of that business, then it would create a different relationship with the one water district that we have, that we do not do that. So it's not part of an asset transfer, but it certainly creates another contractual relationship or opportunity, however you would want to look at it, that we would have to fill.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to find that out. And then on the rate front, then for our City of Eugene customers, then, I mean, I guess the rate, maybe it's so minimal in terms of the whole skewing of it. It's not a massive change. We would just have the flat rate as we normally do. That the idea?
Would be.
There would be a difference between City of Eugene and elsewhere, unless it's a different district that we have a separate contract with.
So through the cost of service, we allocate costs to the appropriate customers.
Okay.
And we would look at that as we looked at developing the water districts rates, that was not necessarily a charge that applied to them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other comments? The only thing that I would say is if and when this transfer goes through, I would welcome it to go on the front page of the paper that EWEB is taking over ownership of the fire hydrants and is making our community safer. That would be something that I would lean into. Yeah, so with that, anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
You can stay up. Next up is the quarterly reports.
President Borowski, commissioners, good evening once again. There's two parts to this particular part of the agenda. The first is a kind of a recap of where we are year to date in 2025. This is relative to just general operations as well as to our annual goals that the board approved in February. And then there's a second part, which is some proposed revised goals. These were introduced to commissioners last month. We did make a couple of modifications relative to some feedback we received, but basically taking a look at the work happening across the organization and developing a sustainable business model to be able to continue that work, revise some of the goals. We'll start really with the year-to-date performance. I think financially, both utilities, the water and electric, we are required by statute to report those separately. Pretty good net position financially, in particular on the electric side compared to last year when we were roughly more than 20 million behind the budget at the end of the first quarter for a number of reasons. We're very pleased that we're not in that particular situation again this year. We do have better, our safety metrics are in good shape. In particular, one of the things that is a good sign is that the good catch reporting, this is the preventative work. Basically, you could call those you used to call them close calls in the old days. Now it's a good catch reporting, really twice what our normal average of those is. Lots of opportunities for improvement, for listening to our employees on a number of fronts there. Reliability, both water and electric are generally in good shape. There's a couple metrics here and there that we're monitoring. Most of those are benchmarked relative to either APPA, American Public Power Association on the electric side, or American Water Works Association on the water side. And then quite a bit of customer activity relative to the number of calls, the customer assistance. We are keeping a close eye on LIHEAP relative to its future and how we're budgeting that for next year. And we're just a little under 50%, roughly 40% of the energy efficiency target for the year, which this time of year is about where we tend to be. And so a lot of just operational activities, pretty much in pretty good shape, as well as some of the project work that's going on. Relative to the goals, we continue to look at how we're reporting operationally. In the background memo relative to the new goals, there was a section on management reporting and what types of reporting that we will do, both those required by policy as well as what we think it's important to daylight for the board and the public. Most of our goals from relative to succession plan, really one of the big lifts for the board in the first half of the year was wading through all the details with staff on the Bonneville contract and the product options there. I'd say that was just a 2025 project, but as you know, most of you started that work in 2020, 2021, and have waded through all kinds of charts and graphs from our power planning group, and eventually ended up making a decision, and we have communicated that to Bonneville, and our goal will be to sign that contract by the end of the year. That will commence in 2028. We've also are looking and making progress on the details and the data analysis associated with limited income, as well as a lot of the segmentation work that we'll be presenting later this year to the board relative to some of the new goals, where we're not just looking at limited income, but we're also looking at the owner occupied versus rental and how those overlap with the size of the bill. There's a Venn diagram that would you're looking for overlap between those three things, and so we're making progress there. We're also a little bit, I would say, I said these are below target. Some of them are below target because there are certain things that we are doing this year, and certain things such as there's some we're putting off any residential demand charge. There's some technical prerequisites in our system that we have to make sure that we're doing. I think the same associated with prepay, for example. There's some things associated with the customer portal and being able to present real-time data in that portal to make that effective. Prepay is not effective if you can't see the real-time consumption that is occurring. So there's some prerequisites there. And then the asset management was kind of an intentional decision to focus on the real key areas of the electric operational asset management plans, the master plans associated with that, which also include forecasting, and do that for water and electric. We were going to also include the information systems asset management portion of that. We think, given the resources going into our enterprise systems, that will be pushed off just a little bit so that we can concentrate on electric and water. And then we are goal 7 and goal 8. I think I mentioned goal 8, where we're really looking at creating a data warehouse where we can use our own internal data around customer patterns, customer behaviors, mix that with premise data. Some of that included at a high level in the demand side potential assessment that was part of the Bonneville program. Those are both progressing, but will be incorporated into the new goal structure, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. It was a rather lengthy report. There's a lot of great data in the report. I won't go through I don't remember how many. It's typically 80 pages. I'm not sure if it was roughly that this time. Really appreciate staff and all their dashboards, all the information about the demographics of our workforce, lots of information in there where we're at with projects, everything from College Hill to the Jessen substation, lots of information, and would be happy to answer any questions or get any comments from the board on the first piece of this, which is a backward cast at the first half of 2025. There's lots of staff in attendance, so feel free to ask any question about any detail whatsoever, and we'd be happy to take a shot at answering those.
Okay, I will open it up. Tonya.
Great report. I don't have any questions or other comments. I just really appreciate all the work that goes into it. It really helps give us a snapshot of each of the pieces. So I know that it is an enormous amount of effort to put it together, but it really does help give us a peace of mind knowing where the organization is at, since we can't be here in it day to day like you all. Thank you.
Other comments? Yes.
I just want to make a comment on that. I know that staff puts a lot of effort into it, so I appreciate your comment, Commissioner Carlson. I would also say, when you do that, it's a really good opportunity to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, where are we? And so it's effort, but it is valuable effort, and it causes us to really think and ponder about where we are. And every once in a while, taking a step back to do that is important. And so it is work. Appreciate what staff does there. More to come. We will continue to refine this especially as we get into new goals and new benchmarks and some of those things, but it's also for a good cause.
Right. Mindy.
We have so many things going on in the organization right now, so it's really great to see that for almost everything we're on target, and even for the couple things that were below target, they're kind of intentional. So I really appreciate that. And then also thank you for keeping the graphics in, because it makes it really easy just to first do like a quick read through it. So I know we're changing the way that we're going to be reporting and things like that, but keep those graphics because they're helpful.
Definitely appreciate that. And I think that came up last time from Commissioner Carlson, who was actually out in the virtual world last month. It's definitely important. I was thinking more like emojis, thumbs up, thumbs down, but we'll stick with the dials for now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I not support emojis? Yeah. Can I thumbs down that concept? Yeah.
I'm sure there's some really creative ones that we could put in there, but they might not all be appropriate.
Why is energy supply a Santa Claus emoji? It's so bizarre. No. Thank you so much for this. I have no questions. I just want to acknowledge the hard work that's put into this and agree. It gives us a great snapshot. It helps us clearly understand of what's going on. And I also just recognize that this is the finished product of so many conversations, so many staff input. So I just really want to acknowledge, your hard work and the hard work of the team behind this as well. And truly, I want to highlight yesterday, I had a question of where is EWEB on the rate design conversation? And it was a perfect moment to say, oh, this is where we're going and this is where we're at. So truly, I mean, this comes at the, in continued conversations. It's great just for our work as well, and also your work. So it sounds like so. Just want to say thank you and appreciate you.
John.
So thank you. I too really appreciate this format. Just a couple questions. You know, I gave a pre-meeting question about Bertelsmann project and we $7.5 million to date, but that's a $40 million project that we kicked down the road. I mean, it's just, I've heard that number before. I just want to kind of refresh my memory of what the total project cost was or the anticipation was.
Yeah, Commissioner Brown, part of the original estimate for that was because we had to, in this description of phases and eventual end use, we had to make some forecasts relative to the final permitted end use design. Right now, we're looking at the first two phases, and the next phases will be based on a combination of financial ability and also the need. There were 5 phases in total. I think those were 25 million. If I remember, 40 sounds a bit high. But that is not approved or expended until we identify the need as part of our normal budgeting process, our capital planning. Right now, we're sticking with phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay. And remind me again, the threshold for the contracts, is it 100,000 that comes to the consent calendar or more?
I believe it's 150.
150. Okay.
Right. And then we are obligated in our reporting to report anything between 40 and 150 on our quarterly report.
Okay. And lastly, I've been on the side of numerous conversations between people that have non-owner occupied rental properties, and they're still having some challenges with the billing. And I assume that we're continuing to work out those glitches. I think that auto pay expires after 2 years, no matter what.
We'll look into that specifically. I heard you mention that. I was listening. I was eavesdropping on a conversation. We're continuing to work on the system, basically the functionality of the system. That's part of the reason that we're taking this period of time is to make sure that functionally it ends up where we want it to be. That's a continuous improvement process, and we're in that now. If there's something specific that you're hearing, and then please pass that on to us. We'll make sure it's.
For now, I'm staying out of it because I'm just BCC'd and so I'm just seeing what's going on. And I just, it's been a dialogue between some customers and our customer service. And so far I'm pleased with the responses I'm seeing, but I'm kind of challenged with some of the things I'm hearing about, like I say, if you have an auto pay and it expires automatically after 2 years, if you're a landlord or a tenant or whatever, and to redo that process for the credit card is not easy. I've tried to do it once, twice myself.
Yeah, and absolutely. And
just wondering why.
Even if you don't feel like you have all the information, if you're hearing a particular description of a case example, we do want to hear those because we want to make sure they're in our project list.
Okay.
So,
all right. Thank you very much. That's good. I appreciate it.
Quick follow-up to Commissioner Brown's question. I did get reminded that, yes, indeed, the total price for Bertelsmann with the entire build out, all the buildings, including the training center, all the parking, lighting, all of that was 45 million.
I stand corrected. Your memory is better than me. He's not.
And mine. It's better than mine too.
It never forgets. So my comments are twofold. One, thank you for the report. Thank you for the dials and all the work that staff puts in on this. I will be very honest with you. We get these quarterly. I dig into probably 2 quarters of them, digging into the appendix. And that's why I don't have a lot of questions on this one. I did go through and read through it. The dials help me know which ones I want to dig into a little bit more. And that doesn't diminish the amount of work that is put into getting these. And I really appreciate the work that goes into these. But on this one, I did the executive summary and I read through them, but I stopped at the appendixes. I didn't read every appendix. So just will put that out there and let you know. Thank you for all the good work. Anybody else? Okay, now you want to move on to the second part.
We're not going to quiz you, President.
I'll quiz you.
Kind of by, I guess, default protocol, what we've kind of narrowed in on was, while these are quarterly, we'll probably do the first quarter and the third quarter via correspondence. and see if there's any questions. And then this one and the year end, we'll spend a bit more time going through the details with the board on. So that's kind of what if you've noticed the agenda planning, that's kind of how it's been structured, and I think that kind of makes sense.
Thank you. So
This one and then the year end one, when would that fall? That would be in,
It's actually in March.
March?
So we
Okay.
go through, we close the books. It's probably still in an unaudited phase because we're right in the middle of the audit, but it's usually presented. There's that in preview. Yeah, it's usually in March. So that'll be the year end.
great, just thinking about, you said year end timing, I thought, that budget meeting and that packet is so large.
Yeah, we'll avoid that
In the middle
one.
of that too, because nobody will read it then. Well, that's so true.
So
I read them every time.
part two is really to get commissioners' approval for a set of goals based on the work that we initiated really last year, and then the executive team dove into more and more this year. It's part of a sustainable long-term business management system and process. There's a workforce development component, a strategic component, and then a continuous improvement for operations component. The goals will tend to be around the strategic compass. There's a number of pieces of feedback here, a number of different tools associated with it that have to do with what we highlighted in the background as far as an X matrix. Really, that describes how these goals align in the near term with the long-term strategic objective. And then there will be scoping plans, bowling charts, recovery. There'll be a quarterly reporting. So this is will be familiar in the sense that you'll get exposure to where we are with these, as well as our operational management reporting, which is things like SAIDI and safety, reliability, line breaks per mile, the OSHA numbers. Those things will continue. The result was there were 18 goals that we're asking for your approval on. There is a sort of I'll say a bit of a decoder ring or a roadmap on the right side, which is how these mapped to the original goals approved in February. This is work that is taking place. This is a bit of a restructuring so that there is better alignment to not just what these goals are now, but how they relate to what you'll see for next year, as well as themes over the 5 years. For example, rate design is a theme that we're looking at and evolving, but there's actions we're taking place this year. And so we do plan to provide you with the dials again for these. And while it looks like a big jump from 8 to 18 goals, that if you really read closely those original 8, there was like 2 or 3 subcomponents to those. So in many ways, it's roughly the same. But we also, this is work that is taking place across the organization. There are groups and teams of people working on these, and this is a way to really align those over the course of time and do it in a way that can be sustained and work with the board so you can see things come and go and you know where they contribute. There is one that I would point out, and this came up last month, the very bottom one there, where we actually incorporated to really go after the effectiveness of both the limited income and dependent customer segments. And the reason that we combined those is that we want to make sure that we're really clear on our segmentation and where there's overlap between limited income, the type of residence, owner occupied, and the size of the bill or the affordability component. So when you think about a Venn diagram, there's some point where it's limited income, high bill, renter, and those are the, understanding that data, some of which we have and some of which we're trying to figure out where we can acquire. That's why those are combined, but it did address an area of interest for the board. We want to do that in a very logical and data-driven way. And that was feedback based on last month, so we really appreciate that. And then there was one emerging one having to do with the determination of the Mackenzie Valley Service Territory. That's one that was not on the list in February. And so things are evolving and being assessed there. And so with that and all the background that came along with it, we would love to get your approval on a motion to revise the goals and then incorporate those into the quarterly reporting along with the management reporting that I mentioned in the memo. Some of those are required by policy. For example, the contracts report that I mentioned is in board policy between 40,000 and 150,000. That's the community investment report. There's a number of them that are in there, the EL1 capital reports. So these would be on top of that reported quarterly, and would love to get your approval and answer any questions, have a discussion.
Sonia.
Move to approve revised 2025 annual goals based on implementation of EWEB business management system.
Discussion. Yeah.
I really like these goals. I think that while there's maybe with the exception of the Mackenzie Valley Service Territory, there's nothing new or we haven't seen before, but I do feel that the format and the way that you've laid everything out is a lot easier to follow and to track. I'll speak for myself, especially for me, where I'm not in it every day versus the goals that we had before that were much more broader and encompassed a lot of things. So for me, these goals work a lot better. Obviously, they work for you because you guys are doing the work and you're proposing this, but I really like this format.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will say one thing, and I know you're in the middle of a motion, so I don't want to interrupt that. But the one thing that when you look at the next layer down, so I think that's a really important organizational component that the board will see in the reporting, which is, okay, here's the goal. Here are the specific measurable actions and deliverables associated with that goal. And so at a staff level, we now have, and I want to say, I don't remember the exact number, but 34 specific deliverables. So some of them support multiple goals, but 34 deliverables that we have action plans for that supports those goals. And so it's really deploying throughout the organization. This is the actions that are supporting our goals that then support our long-term strategic objectives. And so its goal is to connect the dots as we progress. Thank you.
Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I commenting on goal number 9 in particular, the for existing income and for limited income and tenant customer segments. I wanted to acknowledge that at the beginning of the year when we were discussing goals, that there was a genuine conversation from Commissioner Carlson about separating and specifically focusing on tenant relationships with our public utility. And I just want to acknowledge that conversation has continued forward. And I want to just appreciate that, especially in this goal, that there isn't an assumption that limited income and tenant are the same category, that those could be two different categories that do have different needs, and both of those needs need to be approached and acknowledged. So I just wanted to call that out of a conversation that happened in January, February that is continued to be acknowledged and pushed forward. So thank you.
Commissioner Morris, I totally agree with that those are separate but related things that need their own degree of attention. And the third component that we've added in is the size of the bill component. Just because you're in a rental situation, your bill may be higher or lower. Income is separate from the size of the bill versus how the premise is classified. So we really wanted to look at those interrelated things so that we can understand the objectives and the investments that we're making relative to those things.
Yeah, I'm fully in support of this motion. The one thing that I will bring up as far as connecting the dots, there was a chart in the AIS that looked this way, then you had to look this way, and then you had to look this way. I couldn't do it. You know, I would go, okay, this one I've got to look down and say, and it was very small, and then I had to go and see which dots went to that one. That chart doesn't work. And so I would implore you to find some other way to figure that out, whether it's colored dots, go to this or that. Yes. But I'm just giving you input. I couldn't, I started doing that and I got through 3 of them and I said, I'm not going to do it. And I would throw that away. So it's just constructive criticism, but that chart did not work for me.
That constructive criticism taken. We've had a number of discussions about colors, which I shot down. But I'm being overloaded. We'll have great big charts also. Yeah, okay. We appreciate that. But it's also part of, we do emphasize physical safety, and it is a way that you can get some stretching in before meetings. So it's just,
but it doesn't work. That chart does not work. I'm sorry.
In particular, I get it.
Okay. Sonia, did you have one more comment?
I was just going to suggest there was a display that you had up here that was more horizontal that I think is easier because all of the words were the same direction.
Right.
So if you could just turn it and then repeat it on multiple pages, that might be easier to digest as a board.
Okay.
Yeah, let's vote.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Next up is General Manager Transition Plan.
Well, commissioners, in the background memo that I sent you, basically, and I have announced this internal to the organization, also had a number of discussions with the executive team that I will be planning to end have my last day at EWEB sometime in the second quarter of 2026. The reason for announcing it now is to give the board the opportunity to work with Deidre Williams and throughout and really in whatever process that you all decide to recruit and negotiate and onboard my replacement. And so I'm smiling at this point, but I know there is a lot to do, as I think commissioners mentioned, and so plan to be quite busy and engaged for a number of upcoming months until that transition happens. But wanted to give you the ample opportunity to plan and work with Deidre and others. And so I suspect that we'll have to take a close look at agenda planning and what that means. And it's an important decision. It's been an honor to work with you, but I don't want to say too much about that now because there's a lot of work still left. So this is just a formal external to the organization announcement that's my general plan. I've left it a little bit flexible as far as exact date, so that really depending on the recruitment and the timing and what's going on. So I can be a bit flexible and work with the board on that.
Comments, questions, John?
The next one will be the 4th general manager, having been through 3 and been through this process several times. I know how time consuming. It's the most important decision we'll ever make. But how time consuming this is and how, I mean, you look at our future agendas right now, we're negative on time, and we've got a lot of emerging stuff coming up, huge things that are going to take a lot of time. So I would hope that we could get way ahead on the scheduling, because this takes a lot of board time and a lot of, we got to get this right. And so I just would emphasize that we get the schedule out and start scheduling these meetings now, because it's hard enough to get the 5 of us and together and knowing that we'll all always have to do this together. It's a process that I hope that we can stay ahead on. It'll be an interesting thing to do. So,
I did provide some background historical information to Deidre on the last process, how many meetings it took, how many executive sessions versus public sessions, the number of rounds of recruitment and interviews. And that process did use an external nationwide recruiter. So she has all that background and would probably get President Borofsky and Vice President Schlossberg to probably just meet directly with Deidre and look at what that schedule looks like. Or you can work through me. I can facilitate that.
Andy?
I think it would be helpful for like maybe a little orientation or something for the whole board to know what that process looks like, because we only have one of 5 of us who's been through this before. I'm assuming that most of us don't know what that process will even look like. So to kind of get a head start on it, just a little primer of what that is, I think would be really helpful. And also, does this mean that we don't have to do your performance review in March?
I think that's a good idea. I don't think you should do my performance review. That'll save some time right there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
No, I did what I recall from the first the last recruitment was the very first meeting. The board talked about process and what kind of process they wanted to do, whether they wanted to use an external recruiter, to what degree they wanted to make those choices, investments, whether the board, and I don't recall whether Commissioner Brown would know whether in some cases you can have 2 board members as I don't want to call it a subcommittee who can also be part of that in a little bit more hands-on way. I don't know if that's appropriate or the board would want to do that, but those are the very first meeting is probably to review and discuss the process that this board would like to use.
Other comments?
I appreciate you giving us time. Not looking forward to this, and appreciate, all that you've done for the organization. So thank you for sticking around and helping us get through this process. I'm not looking forward to it, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work. And yeah, I agree with Commissioner Schlossberg on, what does that even look like? What are the options available for us to choose from and the costs associated with it? What has in the past led to success? I mean, it's all about, getting the right pool of candidates and then having enough opportunity to be able to vet them in a way that really matters and is valuable for the organization. So I'm also curious, at what point is there a level at which staff are involved in giving feedback? Maybe it's inappropriate, I don't know, but those are the folks day to day that know how to run the operations. And so for me, as we go through this, I'm curious how how there are opportunities for that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I wanted to just also share my appreciation for time and recognizing you could have given us just a 90-day written notice, and I appreciate you doing more than that, because this would have been a pretty challenging process in 3 months to do. So I just want to echo the hope for more time and as much time as possible, and the approach is extremely important as much as the discussion is, and the framework in which we're having this conversation. I know that this will be a conversation as we go forward, but just appreciate and acknowledge your work as well. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I have a couple, questions and maybe direction. I don't know. So the city of Eugene's going through a very similar process. They're looking for a new city manager, and I've been following that. So the process that they went through is they did want to go do an external search. And so the first step of that was vetting the search firms. And so I'm just wondering if, I personally would like to do a nationwide search. I don't know what the rest of the board feels like, and that's something that will come down to after that first meeting. But would it be appropriate to give direction to our human resource people to at least find out the appetite for the headhunters or the recruiters that are out there, the firms that do this for a living? Because that was the first step that the city went through. They said, okay, we need to find the best recruiter, and they whittled that down. And then that recruiter will go out and bring in candidates and do that. I just don't want to be waiting months and months to go through that process when we could perhaps get that process at least going, to vet some of the recruiters, so that next month maybe she has a list and says, okay, these are people that do this. I don't know. I've seen the process going, and I can see months upon months being burned up in the process. So I just would like to lean into that.
Oh, it's this one.
Okay, there we go. Thank you for that comment and question. I think staff is absolutely aligned with that. We want to bring options for you so that we can you can select a recruiting partner as quickly as possible. We're already starting on that. We're working with our purchasing team to look and see how we can expedite the selection and contracting of such an entity while staying within the governance rules of EWEB. So I think there's some ways that we can do that. We just need a little more road time to get that. I think we will have some recommendations and options for you by the next time we talk.
Okay, so that would be, so you don't need to request us to give you the authorization for a request for proposals from those people. That's just kind of, I'm trying to figure out what the mechanism is with this organization.
I believe that we have mechanisms in place that will allow us to begin this work and bring a recommendation.
Okay, great. John?
I just mentioned, I think we've used the same recruiter in the last two recruitments, Wyckoff and Associates out of Denver, and a lady by the name of Lainey Prowse. And why do I remember her name in that company? Because to me, they were excellent. They did an incredible job. And so, I'm just saying that we've done it before, and I think we did okay in the last couple of selections. And so, but I know that you have a process you have to go through and everything else, but it'll be a discussion that we'll all have.
Okay. Other comments or questions? All right, I think this will probably be a recurring agenda item for the next several months.
And it wasn't listed on the goals either. I guess it's sort of emerging. I probably should have had 19 goals. But
no, I think transition is one of.
Oh yeah, we could call it that.
Yeah. You're an employee.
That's true for now.
Okay. With that, other questions or comments, we will let that go. We'll be in touch and move this process forward. Next item is future board agendas. That's you, Frank. We're just going to put.
You have them.
Yeah.
We've got a number of things coming up, including tour of the lower river. That's been on the plate. I know you're out for September. A few things following up from this meeting. Just a number of things, and we'll look for incorporating potential times for executive session and recruitment and that type of thing. Those will be either things moved around or added in. And so just continues to evolve, but the agendas are a little, they float around a little bit as the president and vice president and past understand. But if you had any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
I just have a question. It doesn't really go to the agenda, but when is the Sierra Pacific contract coming up? And is that something that would be on future agendas, or is that handled internally?
It's likely at a level that it would come to the board.
Okay.
I believe it expires middle of next year. So we are actually having discussions with them now.
Okay. So yeah, I didn't notice that on there, and I just was wondering where we'll land on that. And
It may end up being a management pulled consent item. So it would be probably under a consent calendar, but we may pull it off as its own agenda item, depending on how many months we end up negotiating. That'll determine the value and some of the other things, pricing.
Okay. Other questions or comments about the agendas? Okay. Board wrap up.
So I just have a general question. Don't need to answer it tonight, but when are we gonna finish AMI? We've been at it quite a while. And I mean, when are we gonna say it's implemented?
I think on
Do
the
we have
electric
to-
side, we're down to just exceptions. So I would say it's 98% deployed on the electric side. Plus, I mean, we're just down to weird exceptions.
We're behind on the water.
On the water, not the quite the same driver as electric as far as just the dynamics of getting reads. We are doing that in-house, so we did not contract that out. So it's a little bit of a slower roll, and it's a more complex installation. And the last I heard, we were 60%.
Sorry, we should be done by the end of next year.
So we're at 2026. I mean, if somebody asks me, when are we gonna have full implementation of AMI? I would say probably at the end of 2026.
Yeah, for water
And
and electric.
that's when we can-
Electric is essentially done.
But we're not turning them on, and we don't have the features to, the consumers can't prepay and look at where they are in their bill and things such as that. So.
Yeah, the meters themselves, the collection of the data, the work taking place now is the access to the data and integration with the customer system for better tracking, better customer presentation and that kind of thing. So that's taking place as far as the EES work, the enterprise system work. So that part of it is taking place.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions in board wrap up? All right, we're adjourned.